Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to my channel. My name is Paul, the Canadian Snowman, back here with our next installment of the 100 Years' War, obviously between France and England. Yes, this is like what, part four, I think. Uh, this is like basically in the middle of a series. So if you're new to my channel and this is the first video you come across, I would definitely suggest start at the beginning of this playlist because then it gets you all caught up to speed and everything and all that good stuff. But anyways, it's a 100 Years' War, Battle of Agincourt, 1415. So I guess a little bit of a time jump, I think, right? I'm trying to remember. Last episode, yeah, France came on strong, and basically now we have two young kings right now, right? Like they both kind of just took over. Like they were both being they weren't really leading their realms. They had, what was it called? Their, I can't think of the dang word. The people who's above them, like their parents. What's that called? What's that thing called again? But anyways, but that's the past. I think they're kind of growing up now, and they're both kind of doing their own thing. Henry against Charles. Is that it? Or am I wrong? I'm sure they're gonna give us like quick, little brief. What kind of what happened the previous episode. I just know that a bit of a time jump, and I think everything's kind of going back to like, I don't know, evening out now. France. It seems like every time after an episode, there's a little bit of a time period where the one who lost the previous time kind of catches up, and they whatever. I don't know. I can't talk today. I'm sorry, guys. And we're just going to jump into it. Before we do, please hit that like and subscribe button if you're still with me. And yeah, let's do it. Hope you guys enjoyed your day today. It's kind of late right now, so I apologize if I look tired. About to go to bed, but we got videos to do, or a video to do. I'm sorry. And yeah, it's the 100 Years' War. All right, 3, 2, 1, bam.
With the passing of England's golden generation of warrior Plantagenets, such as Edward III, the Black Prince, and John of Gaunt, it seemed as though
all the good guys, not all the good guys, but I guess all the big names are kind of the well-known names to this point are kind of passed off. So we're kind of, like I was saying, we have the two young kings, the two beginners, and it'll be interesting to see what they have to offer, and I don't know what kind of tactics and what kind of strategy they kind of use against each other. So that'd be really interesting, and it's just, how good they are to their people and all that good stuff.
Such as Edward III, the Black Prince, and John of Gaunt, it seemed as though Albion's wartime fortunes had finally run out. Hard-won possessions in Aquitaine had been almost completely lost in just over a decade. France and its allies had control of the sea, and the island kingdom was undergoing political turbulence, which left it unable to conduct.
That's right. France did take over the seas. They slaughtered the British, which definitely surprised me. So yeah, it's all coming back to me now, even though it's only been 2 days.
And the island kingdom was undergoing political turbulence, which left it unable to conduct the war. However, King Henry IV would reinvigorate his realm, change its character forever, and fight one of the most famous battles in European history. Welcome to our video on the Battle of Agincourt. With the
most famous battles in European history. Like, that's a big statement right there. Because in European history, it's insane. I mean, I'm sure there's like insane history all over the world. I think it seems like most documented in Europe. I'm guessing I'm probably wrong here too. It's just this is what we hear about most, I guess, right? But yeah, there's with all especially all the history I've done with like the 30 Years' War and stuff, like this one of the biggest battles. I'm definitely looking forward to this, man. Anyways, while we skip this little ad here, yeah.
Going to ridge.com/kingsandgenerals and using code kingsandgenerals.
Do it.
The reign of Lancastrian usurper King Henry IV did not begin well, and almost immediately rebellions sprang up to resist his rule, first by Owain Glyndŵr in Wales, and then 3 years later by a disaffected member of the Percy family known as Hotspur. As he was the closest to the rebels, the king's 16-year-old son, Henry of Monmouth, skillfully blocked Welsh and Percy forces from uniting with one another, and then played a decisive role in the royalist victory at Shrewsbury in 1403, charging his victorious division into Hotspur's flank and winning the battle.
He was only 16 at the time, Henry. Henry IV, the son of Henry IV. It'd be Henry V, right? Right? I mean, it would make sense, right?
3. Charging his victorious division into Hotspur's flank and winning the battle. It was just a taste of the military prowess the young prince would display in the future. Despite the victory, further revolts broke out during the first decade of the 15th century, and Wales remained recalcitrant. Henry IV also began to suffer from numerous illnesses during the later part of his reign, which left him more and more incapable of ruling his realm. From around 1407 onwards, governance of England would increasingly fall to the heir, Henry of Monmouth, who even at this early stage was noted as a diligent administrator and capable leader.
Okay.
As the new royal House of Lancaster was solidifying its hold over England, their Valois rivals in France were busy destroying.
Lancaster, okay, like the names, they're kind of coming to me because I did the series War of the Roses. If you're new here, definitely check that out. And this is like a prequel to War of the Roses, so it just dawned on me because, like, okay, the names there, just like, okay, rung a bell. Okay, like, kind of things are kind of falling into place of how War of the Roses. I don't know. You know what I'm saying? So this is cool.
Solidifying its hold over England, their Valois rivals in France were busy destroying any unity the French kingdom might have had. 2.5 decades earlier, 25-year-old Charles VI suffered a psychotic episode whilst riding through a forest, and from that point quickly descended into total madness, famously believing himself to be made of glass.
What?
This deficiency on the throne created a power vacuum which would bring disaster to France. Louis I, Duke of Orleans, took the reins of government following his elder brother's fall to madness, continuing the war with England, whilst also increasing his own wealth and power on the side. As the second son of Charles V, Orleans had the status of a Valois Prince du Sang, or Prince of the Blood, and was therefore among the highest nobility in France.
Okay.
The main victim of this state of affairs was the House of Valois-Burgundy, Dukes of Burgundy since the Capetian cadet house's extinction. John II granted the vacant duchy as an appanage to his youngest son, Philip the Bold, in 1363, and that son had subsequently been the dominant force in Charles VI's minority. Upon Philip's death in 1404, the powerful Duchy of Burgundy, which now included wealthy Flanders and Artois in the north, passed to John the Fearless. Jonathan Sumption describes him as a short, bull-headed man of unprepossessing appearance.
Somebody is already going to be impactful, or they've been impactful in their life when they have a name with them, like John the Fearless. It's not just John, it's John the Fearless. So, like, just like the Black Prince, it's just not some, like, random dude that's just going to come and go. Like, obviously they made a stamp for themselves, so I'm kind of curious. They might not say anything, but, I was kind of curious of the fearless part here. Obviously, he's fearless, but, what gave him that name? You know what I'm saying? Like, event.
Him as a short, bull-headed man of unprepossessing appearance, graceless, awkward, and taciturn. But aside from his less-than-perfect personality, he was a man of supreme talent. John's military experience was extensive, culminating in his leading of the French contingent in the Battle of Nicopolis, while his excellent administrative skills often led his father to rely on John as a capable deputy during times of need.
All right.
A bitter struggle for power and control over the kingdom began between John the Fearless and the Duke of Orleans, which quickly turned violent. The two men clashed on almost every single important policy issue. While John supported the Pope in Rome and opposed continued war with England due to the danger it caused to trade in Flanders, Orleans deferred to the Avignon papacy and wanted to continue the conflict. Factions began to develop around both parties. Orleanists, later called Armagnacs, followed Louis, and Burgundians rallied to John, with street brawls even occurring between both groups of supporters in the capital city streets. This simmering tension finally boiled over when on November 23, 1407, the Duke of Orleans was dragged from his mule and brutally bludgeoned to death on a Paris street by assassins sent by John.
I love two things. Eating high-quality cat food from Petco in the box.
That's crazy.
John. Louis's young son Charles inherited the dukedom, and, advised by the late Louis's father-in-law, the Count of Armagnac, swore an oath of vengeance against the Duke of Burgundy. This started a vicious civil war between the Armagnac and Burgundian factions, which was to last for decades. After securing power in Paris by means of a coup d'etat, John the Fearless was besieged in the city by the Armagnacs in 1411, led by the Duke of Berry, another prince of the blood. Seeking assistance, the Duke of Burgundy sent envoys to Henry IV in England, promising territory in Flanders and other concessions in return for aid. A few weeks later, 3,000 English troops under the Earl of Arundel ventured to France and managed to break the siege.
Oh man, it seems like now we got, the opposite. There was like some chaos going on in England when things were going good in France, and it's like this back and forth thing. Like it's a mess in France right now, and like you got Henry over here. Like I guess he's going to go help him because he's been promised land. You think that maybe he's also thinking like, yo, let's just like kick him while they're down. Let's just not aid him. Let's just take over. This is. Yeah, I wonder what's Henry gonna do here?
Troops under the Earl of Arundel ventured to France and managed to break the siege before returning home.
Okay.
The harsh rule of John the Fearless angered Paris's civilians.
Okay, I thought there was gonna be something more to that, but apparently he just stopped the siege and went back home. Okay, a little disappointed there, but I know more's coming. I thought there was going to be some like backstabbing and drama could take place during that siege or something.
The harsh rule of John the Fearless angered Paris's civilians, and in 1413, the Duke was forced out of the city, isolating himself in his own vast domains, while the Armagnacs secured most of the country. Unfortunately for them, time.
Wouldn't he be king though? Like they call him Duke, but like he took over France, right? Like he was basically the king of France, right? Or like that's something you kind of have to be sworn in to do. Like I just thought like the leader, like the one who was calling the shots in France, like the one in Paris and everything, they were just the king, I guess there's more to it than that. You kind of have to be, I guess all the people and everything gotta kind of have to agree with that or whatnot. I don't know.
The Armagnacs secured most of the country. Unfortunately for them, time had run out. In England, Henry IV passed away of chronic illness in March of 1413 and was succeeded by his son, who was coronated as Henry V on April 9th as a snowstorm raged outside of Westminster Abbey. The new ruler consciously transformed his behaviour upon coming to the throne. From an unruly and riotous Prince of Wales, fond of wine, women and quarrelling with his father, now King Henry V immediately began conducting himself with gravitas and level-headedness, taking his responsibilities as a monarch seriously. He gathered worthy, incorruptible advisors around himself, kept household costs low, engaged personally in ensuring justice in his realm, and subdued lawlessness wherever and whenever he could. Yet he also...
Man, well... It's looking really good for France right now. Henry V. Obviously, we already know he's definitely good, like military kind of guy. he can definitely handle his own doing that. But now he's kind of grown up, matured, and they said taking things seriously and surrounding himself with reliable people. So England looking strong, and he's stopping any uprisings. So let's see.
And subdued lawlessness wherever and whenever he could. Yet he also delved into Christianity and became a religious zealot capable of extraordinary brutality when he thought it necessary.
Wow.
When Henry's heretical old friend John Oldcastle plotted to kidnap him, the king had him and all of his followers burned alive.
Wow.
Above all, however, was Henry V's desire to regain the rights and territories of the English royal family in France. It was clear that the new king would not maintain the truce for long. In late 1414, a grand embassy was sent to Paris to discuss proposals for peace, but Henry's demands were extremely high. The 1360 Treaty of Bretigny was to be fully re-implemented, and England's stolen territories in Aquitaine, Poitou and Ponthieu were to be returned. More than that, any outstanding funds from Jean II's ransom agreement would be paid, along with an additional £330,000, the annexation of Normandy, Maine and Anjou, as well as overlordship of Brittany, Flanders, Beaufort and Nogent. Perhaps Henry V was simply attempting to regain lost English lands in France, but such untenable terms might have been intended to be rejected. Whatever the case, the French did indeed reject them, and that made the resumption of war inevitable.
Wow.
With his rejection, the Dauphin of France, Louis of Guyenne, sent the English king an insulting gift, arrogantly stating to the ambassadors that he would send to King Henry, because he was young, little balls to play with and soft pillows to sleep on to help him grow to manly strength. In response, Henry stated to his advisors that, if perchance they thought to lie abed with soft pillows, then I, perchance before they wish, shall arouse them from their slumbers by hammering on their doors at dawn. With that, orders were sent out to raise the largest English army since Crécy. 320 captains were contacted to muster troops in various regions around the kingdom under an indenture, a legal contract between a soldier and the man he served under. It specified the conditions and length of service, disciplinary practices, pay grades and other matters, and was a sign that mobilizing troops in England was becoming more professionalized. Other feudal lords raised retinues from...
I was gonna say, like, I guess that wasn't a thing until now. I guess people just kind of like, okay, cool, we're going to go fight, and they go, and there's no contract. Like, you can basically just bail on the army. It's like, this is not really what I signed up for, and you can kind of ditch the army with absolutely no consequences. I guess this is like, hey, you're committed. There's no backing out now. You're going to war, and you're gonna listen to us and do what we want you to do, kind of thing. So I guess, yeah, like you said, I guess it's things are becoming more professional now. Okay, interesting.
Was becoming more professionalized. Other feudal lords raised retinues from their own fiefs, and Henry himself even drew warriors from his royal lands in Cheshire, Lancashire and South Wales. Overall, the army which gathered in Southampton was around 12,000 strong, with a large archer contingent.
Yep.
After dealing with a plot to depose him and executing its ringleaders, Henry V and his invasion force embarked from England on August 11, 1415, in around 700 ships. The king himself and his closest advisors sailed aboard a 500-ton flagship known as Le Trinite. The armada reached the Normandy coast 3 days later and disembarked near Chef du Caux at the mouth of the Seine River. Rather than launching a devastating chevauchée through the area as his royal predecessors had, Henry marched to the strategic port of Harfleur and, when his surrender demand was rejected, put the city to siege. However, unexpectedly dogged resistance by the small garrison led to a siege of 6 weeks, during which the English army was ravaged by outbreaks of malaria and dysentery, which eventually killed or debilitated almost a third of its troops.
Wow.
Henry finally took the city on the 22nd of September and then conferred with his advisors as to what their next move was going to be. At the time he was doing so, a large French army of about 20,000 men was slowly gathering in Rouen under the Dauphin. Ready.
So he lost about a third of his men, so he's down to, I don't know, like 7,000 or so, and then you got 20,000 of the French, and so you're way outnumbered, dude. But I guess they're gonna have to siege you now if you have the town, right?
Ready to intercept the English. Henry V wasn't the only thing Charles had to worry about. John the Fearless declared himself eager to join the fight against England, but his presence was judged to be detrimental, as it would only cause divisions in the army. So the Dauphin...
John the Fearless, didn't England come to help him? He called for England and they helped him, and now you're gonna go basically go against the people who helped you. I guess you're right. It is your country. France is your country, right? So I guess that makes sense. It just things seem kind of odd.
Be detrimental, as it would only cause divisions in the army.
Right.
So the Dauphin asked the Duke of Burgundy to send 800 troops instead of coming himself. But this insulted the Duke, and he instead refused to send any assistance.
Okay.
Throughout the entire campaign, the nominally Armagnac French leaders would have to keep one eye on Burgundy. It had long been rumoured that he was collaborating with the English. Nevertheless, the delay at Harfleur put King Henry into a predicament. It was late in the campaigning season now, but he could not just sail back to England without achieving anything more. Nor could he risk marching towards Bordeaux as he had intended, or Paris itself. The army was too depleted, and an attack on the capital might forcibly reunite the French factions. Instead, it was decided that the army would head immediately for Calais, so that Henry might tread the same steps through his lands in Normandy and Ponthieu that his great-grandfather Edward III had. After garrisoning the newly captured Harfleur, the English army set out on its march, intending to remain on the coast all the way to Calais. The trek started well enough, and rivers near Dieppe and Eu were easily forded, but this all changed on the 13th. As Henry's army approached the old Roman ford over the Somme at Blanchetaque, where the king planned to cross, a captured Gascon prisoner informed him that an advance guard of 6,000 French under Constable Charles d'Albret was waiting and ready to block any attempt to cross. Realizing that he would have to cross further inland, Henry pivoted right and marched upstream, shadowed all the way by d'Albret on the other side of the bank.
Wow.
After managing to shake his pursuers off, however, the English managed to cross at Nesle, but it was already too late. In the meantime, the main French army under Bourbon cut across the Somme at Amiens and proceeded to unite with d'Albret near Péronne. The tired English, racked by hunger, disease, and now almost entirely depleted of supplies, continued marching north, and on October 23rd reached...
I'm trying to think to myself, what's Henry trying to do? You're extremely outnumbered right now, probably 5,000 troops or something like that, 6,000. And, is way outnumbered, here. So, I think, what can he possibly be thinking of right now? Because he has to come out, he has to leave here with some kind of victory. So, yeah, what are you doing, dude? What tricks do you have up your sleeve?
Blangy. It was there, as Henry's army crossed a tributary of the great river, that it witnessed a terrifying sight. Drawn up on a slightly elevated ridge about a mile in front of them was the entire French army, rank after rank of magnificent mounted knights and men-at-arms, a sight which led the English king to draw up in battle formation as well. After a tense hour-long standoff, the French pulled back even further and took up position for the night in a blocking position on the road to Calais, near a small hamlet known as Agincourt. On the night of October 24th, Henry ordered complete silence in the English camp, while the French could be heard rejoicing and celebrating across the rain-filled night air. The battlefield, which both sides lined up on the following morning, was an area of sodden, recently ploughed field, in an area between the village.
Wow, I can't wait right now to see this little bit of strategy we're about to hear, because obviously they've been told to be extremely quiet. The French are over there having a party apparently, because I guess they think, we got these guys extremely outnumbered. In the morning time, we're gonna go and we're just gonna destroy the English. And I can already, obviously that's not gonna happen, because yeah, we got something in the works here. So
was an area of sodden, recently ploughed field, in an area between the village of Agincourt in the west, Chamcourt in the east, and Maisoncelles in the south, bounded by forested terrain on the flanks of each army. Henry V's depleted army was now about 8,500 strong, and severely lopsided in composition, with 7,000 archers and only 1,500 dismounted knights and men-at-arms.
Wow.
Due to its limited numbers, it was arrayed in a single line of battle. In the center were 3 small divisions of melee infantry.
That's crazy. Like 7,000 bowmen and 15 on the bowmen, that's amazing. But once it gets to close combat, that's it. You're definitely going to have to use those bows to your advantage, before, the armies get close together. Wow, it's huge.
In the center were 3 small divisions of melee infantry, known as battles, with units of longbowmen between them. The left battle was under the command of the veteran Baron of Camoys. The right was led by Edward, Duke of York, while Henry V took control of the central division. Even more archers were equally placed on both the left and right flanks, with a significant portion in the woods on each side of the field. The archers were under the authority of Sir Thomas Erpingham. All of the army was protected by a defensive wall of stakes and caltrops, designed to blunt cavalry charges. On the other side of the field, a grand French royal army of around 20,000 was under the nominal but insecure dual command of Constable Charles d'Albret and Marshal Boucicaut, professional men whose relatively low birth meant that they were outranked by high nobles such as the Dukes of Orléans, Alençon and Bourbon. Their army was deployed in 3 lines of battle, the first and second comprising most of France's proud dismounted knights and men-at-arms for use as a sledgehammer against the English, while a line of mainly archers and crossbowmen were kept in the rear. It was the duty of the nobility to win the battle, not mere bow-wielding peasants. On both flanks, a heavily armoured cavalry force of around
peasants. So, obviously, archers on the French side, or whatever, the crossbowmen, they don't seem like they're going to be a factor in this, and because to get the honor, and they're just going to charge them apparently, or just, I don't know, we're about to hear about the knights here, but it doesn't sound like there's much strategy here. It kind of feels like back to the beginning of this war, where the French just kind of okay, we got more numbers, we don't need a strategy, we'll just walk up and beat them just by showing up, and obviously did not work before. And I think it seems like there's a lot of, I guess, people here that are kind of in power here, or I don't know, it doesn't seem like there's one main voice with, anyways, leading up to this, it's not like we've heard of some kind of famous leader here that's done a whole lot. So it doesn't seem like there's this military genius controlling France's army right now. I could be totally wrong here. This happens to me a lot, where I think one thing and the opposite happens, but right now it doesn't look that way.
Wielding peasants. On both flanks, a heavily armoured cavalry force of around 750 knights each was in the process of forming up, while more units were slowly trickling into the French army as time went by.
All right.
Every business is on a journey. And along the ride, you'll find many challenges. Your Dell Technologies advisor can help you find the right tech solutions, so you can stop at nothing for your customers.
Like slowly trickling in, like, don't they have their army already set up? Like everyone was already there. Do they mean like other followers that that weren't there that night? They just showing up, or people are still waking up from the same camp and they're like, oh, you're just taking their time, because they don't really think there's much is going to happen in this battle. Everything seems so nonchalant right now on the French side, like, and then on the other side, the English, they're like, they've got guys hiding in the bushes, they're bowmen, and they got their spikes, like they're ready, like they know, like they have to be 110% if they're gonna have a chance to win. While these guys, I don't know, probably waking up hungover, just getting out of their beds. It seems like. I mean, I'm no disrespect at all to the French and everything. That's just kind of how it seems. I would have said the same thing if the roles were reversed.
Having learned the harsh lesson from their defeats at Crécy and Poitiers, the French did not charge right away, and instead remained where they were.
Smart.
It was clear to D'Albret and Boucicaut that while their enemy's army would only wither away with time, their own would get even stronger. Whatever its merits, the impetuous knights and nobles of...
I guess that just proves right there that they're talking about like people just coming in over time, like I guess from other parts of France. They're just slowly trickling in to make their army even larger than the 20,000. So, yeah.
Stronger. Whatever its merits, the impetuous knights and nobles of France chafed at this cowardly strategy of delay. Seeing that the French weren't going to attack him, Henry V knew he had to make the first move before it was too late. So, after conferring with his captains, the king ordered his entire army to uproot its stakes and slowly shift forward in an orderly manner, supposedly shouting to his troops, "Fellas, let's go!" After advancing into longbow range, the army once again hammered down its stakes, after which the English archers immediately began loosing heavy volleys at the surprised knights out in front.
I'm surprised the stakes being pulled up that the French didn't advance right there, and then when they stop and go put their stakes back in the ground, it seems like that'd be something that would take some time. That I wouldn't. You think that France would kind of like take that as an opportunity, but I guess now we're in battle here. I guess the longbows are going to come into play. This is definitely interesting.
The English archers immediately began loosing heavy volleys at the surprised knights out in front. This withering arrow fire panicked the hastily formed French cavalry units, and now they charged full tilt at Henry's line. Erpingham had the longbowmen knock an arrow and draw their bowstrings back, and then commanded them to wait. Then, as the French mounted knights, drawn from the very best horsemen in the army, came close to the line through the soaking mud of the field, Erpingham shouted, "Now strike!" and his archers loosed at point-blank range from the front and tree line. The sky darkened for a second before hundreds of knights and their horses were struck and slain by the dense volley of bodkin-tipped arrows.
Wow.
Those who did manage to get through were trapped on the sharp stakes or routed back to their own lines.
Damn.
While the massacre of the mounted charge was going on, a group of peasants and cavalry, led by a few Burgundian nobles, looted Henry's baggage train, stealing the king's bedding, his crates of cash, and even one of his crowns. It didn't affect the course of the battle until later.
Until later. I mean, I forget which battle this was. I think it was during Alexander the Great, where something like this happened, and I overlooked the baggage train thing, and they took like the women and I don't know, like the women of the, I don't know, that's the thing. But this is obviously is going to be a big impact after this, because they're not going to be able to do certain things. There's people are going to die over this. Something like that's going to happen. So I'm not taking this lightly, because obviously they said we'll come back to this kind of thing. Anyways.
Affect the course of the battle until later. D'Albret's first line of infantry was trudging with difficulty through often knee-deep mud at the same time, made worse by the preceding cavalry charge. A combination of the bad terrain, heavy armour, and having their cohesion disrupted by their own retreating cavalry left the French vanguard sitting ducks for lethally accurate English longbowmen, who loosed volley after volley into the almost immobile mass and inflicted horrific losses. Despite the setbacks, the flower of France's military might smashed into the thin English line like a tidal wave and immediately forced it back before the equally stubborn men-at-arms under Henry halted the push. While a vicious melee began at the point of contact, the second line of infantry now pushed forwards also, but they caused a crush upon nearing the vanguard, which prevented most of the army from engaging and most frontline troops from retreating. Though the French were suffering, Henry's melee infantry was taking a mauling. In the right division, Edward, Duke of York, was cut down in some of the fiercest fighting, while Henry V himself was almost killed and a portion of his crown cut off. When the archers on the flanks ran out of arrows, they charged in from the wings with whatever weapons they could find to assist their own warriors. Shortly after noon, the French attack collapsed, and the English took many prisoners of low and high rank, including the Dukes of Bourbon, Orléans, and Marshal Boucicaut. At that moment, someone in the English formation shouted that enemy reinforcements were incoming, perhaps having seen the looters at the camp earlier in the battle. With the amount of captives they had taken, it was plausible that a prisoner uprising, rearmed with discarded equipment, along with fresh foes, might doom Henry's army. The English king, therefore, ordered 200 archers to go to the camp and kill almost every single soldier the army had taken captive. With thousands dead on the field of Agincourt and even more prisoners slaughtered in the din of battle, the terrified remainder of the French forces retreated. That night, King Henry V of England made the captured Dukes of Orléans and Bourbon wait on his feasting table before reaching Calais and sailing home in mid-November. The English monarch had won perhaps the most famous clash of the 100 Years' War, but the war hadn't been won yet. Even though his greatest political triumphs were yet to come, Henry V was soon to be overshadowed by one of the most famous figures in French history, Joan of Arc. We will tell the story of her participation in the war in our next episode, so make sure you are subscribed and have pressed the bell button to see the next video in the series. Please consider liking.
Wow. I mean, I definitely get the slaughter. If you can't, they're already outnumbered, and that would just take more men to keep these prisoners in check and they uprise. I totally get it. I actually thought that them losing the baggage train would actually be like come into play a lot more. I mean, I guess it did there at the end because that's kind of what caused the slaughter there at the end of the French prisoners. But I thought they're coming to play differently. I'm definitely surprised that the French, like once I seen the reinforcements come in, the clash, like I don't think, I thought that was it. I thought, okay, Henry's gonna have to turn and run, and he had some good time in that battle. It took out a lot of French troops, but now he's gonna have to like flee and try and do something different. But no, I guess they kind of surround him and just kill enough of them where they just had to go back, retreat, and all that stuff. And wow, they were extremely. It was like, would they say? It was like 85. It was 8,500 to 20,000. Like, and there wasn't really any height advantage. I don't think. I think the French were on the hill this time, so it was basically just a head-on thing. Well, it just shows you like. Once again, where you have a prepared, ready army with a tactic in hand against a foe who is just disorganized and not ready, and just not, I guess, led properly, whatever you want to call it. The one with the less men, the ones that are ready and prepared, they're gonna win, or at least put up a really good fight. And I guess they did learn their lesson. They just ran the battle. I mean, the English had to push forward, so it wasn't like they just rushed in there. They were just, well, they kind of were, because from the English tactics there, they kind of forced their hand, because they pushed them. The English pushed them and got them into battle faster than they wanted to do, and all their knights got slaughtered there at the beginning, and that just domino effect after that. So that definitely really interesting stuff in this episode. And on Joan of Arc, like I was pretty sure that Joan of Arc was going to be in this series, because I remember watching, I think it was War of the Roses or something, and on my King and Generals like notifications or whatnot, I remember seeing the name Joan of Arc in 100 Years War. I believe it was 100 Years War pop up, and I was like, that's cool. Like, Joan of Arc is in this war, and I knew the series wasn't ended there, so I didn't want to start on the 100 Years War then. But now I don't think it's ended now, so I might still have to wait for the last episode. I don't know, but that's not right now anyway. But anyways, guys, really cool episode. Really, really impressed. I love really cool battles like that, and that was definitely impressive. I can definitely see why that was one of those big, I guess, big battles in history. I mean, I'm still not sure. It's like, I don't know. There's just so many battles to really point your finger at, like the best European battles in history. Like, there's just too many, I guess, to choose from. But anyways, yeah. So I wouldn't know where to rank this battle amongst others. Maybe you guys can let me know below. But anyways, guys, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Hope you're enjoying this series. I'm really enjoying this series. I've heard the name of this war, a lot of times, through growing up and everything. I knew nothing about it, though. I just heard the name. But anyways, guys, really been a lot of fun and everything. You guys have a great day, great night, and I'll catch you next time with another episode of the 100 Years War. We're on to Siege of Orleans. I don't know. Joan of Arc saves France. Okay. Joan of Arc saves France. I guess that's kind of a spoiler right there, but I know Joan of Arc anyway is a big name, and so I wouldn't expect her to lose anyway. So I guess it's not really much of a spoiler, because I wouldn't expect it, but it's still kind of a spoiler. But anyways, guys, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. I'm out of here. Peace.